preparations for the War of Independence in Ireland, and nowhere is this more prevalent than the town of Killaloe on the Tipperary-Clare border, where 4 men were killed on this bridge by RIC gunmen.
In the weeks before that, the situation across the country and here in East Clare had been really intensifying in terms of violence between the British forces and the Republican movement. The morning of the 16th of November, you had a situation where 3 active IRA volunteers, Michael Brod McMahon, Martin Gildea and Alfie Rogers, had been staying in Williamstown in Whitegate. They first confronted Michael Egan, who was the caretaker, was not an IRA volunteer, but he tried to divert away the auxiliaries and to insist that there was nobody staying in the house. Of course, it transpired that the 3 IRA men were actually sheltering in the house, and as a consequence of that, Michael Egan, the caretaker, was taken with them onto the boat, brought back here to Killaloe. For a period of about 8 hours, they were beaten and fairly severely tortured, and then at approximately midnight, all 4 were brought out onto the bridge of Killaloe, and sometime between 11:30 and 12:30, all 4 were shot dead. Now, there is a dispute in terms of the official record and the local opinion on it. The British claimed that the 4 men attempted to escape and after failing to halt were shot dead. I've been researching this for over 16 years, and I've not encountered anybody who believes that version. We often focus on their end and we see them as 4 martyrs, and that becomes the beginning and end point of the kind of narrative. But Alfie Rogers and Brod McMahon were 2 men, the sons of business owners from the town of Scarriff. Martin Gildea then was from Galway. He came eventually down before the 1916 Rising to work for a man called Denham Sparling, again in a shop. So McMahon, Rogers and Gildea, the 3 IRA volunteers, had worked in shops in the same small town, got to know each other very, very well, and had become immersed, I suppose, in the post-1916 Rising development of Irish republicanism, and were really, really committed. And by 1919 were recognised as significant officers in the 4th Battalion of the IRA. All 3 were very committed to the Irish language, Irish culture as well, and that is very much documented as part of their motivation for their involvement. Michael Egan is different in the sense that Michael wasn't a member of the IRA. He comes into the story just at the point where the lads start to sleep in the Williamstown house where he was the caretaker. He had been a postman, but all 4 would have certainly known each other. Michael would have been in and out to Scarriff as a postman from time to time. He would have known the 3 lads reasonably well, but obviously only became really connected to them in the final days of the overall story.
My name is Mark Rogers, and I am a great-grandnephew of Alfie Rogers. We never probably understood what it actually was until maybe we were 11, 12 years of age. You go to the mass and you go down and you see the wreath laid and everything, but you don't probably understand it until you are a bit that bit older, because it's quite a complex issue. I think everyone is proud of what those men stood for. They were all local East Clare men, and they all fought for what they believed in, which was a freer Ireland. And it's important not to forget that. The black bands, especially the day we played Kildare in the hurling, that was a nice touch as well as all the night below on the bridge in Killaloe. That was another nice event.
Finn McMahon and Brew McMahon would be my great uncle. It does make me feel quite proud, because in the country that we obviously live in, it is wiped completely off the curriculum. For example, with our history lessons at school, we do all English history, and then the entirety of any relationship between England and Ireland is completely wiped off our curriculum. If I try and tell people that to fit in with English culture, they just sort of dismiss it very quickly. So it's good to be able to sort of express who we are as a family, if that makes sense, and celebrate what they did and the sacrifices they sort of made.
So, Alfie Rogers, Brod McMahon, Martin Gildea and Michael Egan as well are continuing to have a sort of a positive effect on the consciousness of people, particularly now after the centenary, when more and more people have become engaged in the story. So they're still having a positive effect on the country, even though it mightn't have, achieved the dreams that they had during their young lives. It certainly, I know from my research, that it is the most memorialised and remembered event in County Clare, and there's over 100 different types of memorials across the county relating to the revolutionary period. The monument here on the bridge of Killaloe was installed in 1923, which is really, really early. It's the second oldest Republican monument in the country. So from really early on in the story, there was a determination to remember at a public level. From the funeral of the Scarriff Martyrs up in Scarriff, there was a declaration that there would be a monument erected as soon as possible to remember the men properly. So you had Killaloe remembering at a public level, you had Scarriff remembering at a public level, you had the East End Memorial Park in Tumgraney, which was unveiled in 1952, which was part of that public remembering as well. So certainly at a public level, you know, when you go to either Killaloe, Scarriff, Whitegate to another degree, and mention the revolutionary period, the Scarriff Martyrs, or the four who fell as they're called here in Killaloe, would be the first thing that would be brought up. So it is the big landmark in all of those areas.
Separated by the longest river in Ireland, the River Shannon, and in the middle of a war period in Ireland that divided the country, the two towns here have only grown closer together.
After time passed, there was a pride mixed in with that, you know, that their brothers were seen as martyrs or their sons were seen as martyrs, but no family would desire for their sons to be martyrs. Their death and the memory of their sacrifice has had a really positive effect in a very ironic way, and that is the reality of kind of martyrdom across the world, that there can be almost more of an effect out of somebody's death than there can be out of other people's lives.